is that progress? David, I progress to you.
1,500 years between Socrates and Galileo, 350 years between Galileo and Dreyfus, 25 years between Dreyfus and Scopes, and now only 14 years between the end of the Scopes trial and the beginning of World War II. History has again sped up exponentially. Look what has happened in only 20 years between Scopes and the Nuremberg trials. 1919, another Treaty of Versailles was signed ending World War I and imposing heavy reparations payments on Germany. The Allies, and particularly France, hadn't forgotten the disaster of the Franco-Prussian War and insisted on both economic and political revenge. 20 billion gold marks as an interim measure, and occupation of the Ruhr Valley coal and steel industries when Germany defaulted on their ability to deliver. 1922, King Victor Emmanuel declares Mussolini Prime Minister of Italy in an attempt to head off violent conflict between the fascists and the communists. The next year, Adolf Hitler and General Ludendorff, a German World War I hero, led a small contingent of followers in a harmless and comical attempt at rebellion known as the Beer Hall Putsch, for which Hitler is imprisoned for 2 years. In 1924, Vladimir Lenin dies. His death leaves some questions as to who will be his successor. Joseph Stalin eventually outmaneuvers Leon Trotsky to take control of the Soviet government. In that same year, the German Chamber of Deputies accepts the Dawes Plan, which restructures the schedule of German reparations payments so as to reduce the amount of annual payments and grants Germany a large loan. Hyperinflation, however, grips the country, and the German nation, like France, a few years before, is both furious and desperate.
The Locarno Pacts are signed the next year in efforts to stabilize relations with Germany and its neighbors. The pacts usher in a period of relative peace and prosperity. Russia, however, refuses to sign. In 1926, Joseph Pilsudski becomes the chief of state and virtual dictator in Poland and maintains this position until his death in 1935. There seems to be a trend of dictatorship taking over European countries. In 1931, a provisional government is established to take Spain from monarchy to republicanism. 1932, General Gyula Gombos comes to power in Hungary, using the office of Prime Minister like a dictatorship, setting the tone for the Hungarian government during the remaining interwar years. Between February and July 1932, the final League of Nations Disarmament Conference is held in Geneva, with 60 nations in attendance, including Canada. However, this conference, like its predecessors, fails to secure any agreement, and organized disarmament remains an unaccomplished goal. 1933-34, Stalin's Central Purge Commission publicly investigates and tries many party members for treason, as Stalin seeks to rid the party of opposition. 1,140,000 Communist Party members are expelled to fates mostly unknown. Also in 1933, in an attempt to reel in the chaos of the German government, President Paul von Hindenburg declares Hitler Chancellor, the first major step in Hitler's ascent to dictatorship. In the same year, the German Reichstag passes the Enabling Act, which gives Hitler the power to issue decrees with the status of law. In 1936, Leon Blum's Popular Front government, remember him from the Dreyfus case, comes to power in France. Blum's leftist party institutes social legislation and allows wide public participation in the government, but ultimately fails to curtail the depreciating economy.
In 1936, Generals Goged, Mola, and Francisco Franco lead troops in rebellion against the Republic, sparking the Spanish Civil War. In 1937, the small northern town of Guernica is bombed by Spanish nationalists, and civilians are gunned down as they flee the scene. In this brutal massacre, 1,500 die and 800 are wounded, but the military targets in the town remain intact. This massacre inspired Picasso to produce one of his most famous paintings, Guernica. In 1938, Britain and France appease Hitler by signing the Munich Pact, which grants Hitler control of the Czech Sudetenland. On January 30th, 1939, Hitler threatens the Jews in his Reichstag speech.
This is a translation of what he said.
What?
1939, Madrid falls to Francisco Franco's forces, effectively ending the Spanish Civil War. Franco's oppressive dictatorship begins. September the 3rd, 1939, in response to Hitler's continued aggression in Eastern Europe, Britain and France go to war with Germany in an attempt to stop Hitler's bid for global hegemony.
I am speaking to you from the cabinet room at 10 Downing Street.
Imagine everyone listening to this.
This morning, the British ambassador in Berlin handed the German government a final note, stating that unless we heard from them by 11 o'clock, that they were prepared at once to withdraw their troops from Poland, a state of war would exist between us.